Hello, Keith Rucker here at VintageMachinery.org. Guys, look here. Look what followed me home. Another orphan machine, needed to find a new place to live, and just had to bring her in and adopt her. So what we got here, this is a Landis cylindrical grinder, and I recently picked this up. Actually, it's kind of a neat story about where this came from. So some of you guys may know a little bit about my history working in a machine shop, but when I graduated from high school back in the mid-1980s, my job that I got out of high school was actually working in a machine shop, and I went to work for a gentleman where I grew up up in North Georgia, Virgil Williams, and I went to work in his shop and spent about 2.5 years working in his shop, really saving money so I could go off to college. But I learned a valuable trade in the process, and you know, as you can tell, it has stuck with me. Even though I don't work professionally as a machinist anymore, nor have I in many years, I fell in love with the work, and you know, kind of built what I've got now as a result of that. Well, I had totally lost track of Virgil, hadn't seen him in probably 20-something years, about 20 years anyway. And out of the blue, a couple of months ago, got an email. He had seen some of my YouTube videos. He reached out to me, and turned out his shop, he had moved shops. He wasn't where he used to be anymore, but he lived in the same, or his shop was in the same town that my parents live in. And when I was up at Thanksgiving, I went by and visited him, had a great visit, got to see a lot of the old machines that I used to run back 30-something years ago. But when I was visiting, he showed me this machine. He says, hey, this is something that he really didn't have a need for anymore. Wanted to know if I was interested in it. We made a deal. It followed me home, and here it is. So we went and picked it up. Had to rent a big, heavy-duty 6,000-pound forklift to come get it and set it in the shop. They showed up today, and we put it in here. And lo and behold, fortunately for me, I had a YouTube fan of mine that has been here before, Nils Lima. And Nils is actually an electrician by trade, does a lot of control electrical work. And just turned out he was going to be visiting today just in time for this to come in. So we actually spent most of the day today doing some electrical work and trying to get this machine up and going. So a little bit about it. It's basically you can put something up in here 24 inches long. Got a chuck on here that turns. I think it swings about 10 inches if I remember right. But it's you kind of think of it as a lathe, but instead of having a cutter, you got a grinding wheel. So this thing is designed to do really fine work and really fine finishes when you need to do something. You can actually set this table at angles if you need to do tapers. There's just all kinds of really neat things to do with it. This particular model actually has a head up here that drops down. There's a separate motor up here, and this is for doing internal boring. So you can do inside boring on this as well as outside turning or grinding. So it's either an internal grinder or an external grinder. Really nice machine. Glad to have it in the shop, and I think it's going to be a nice asset. Let me kind of do a little walk around and tell you a little bit about it. So the way I got it set up right now, of course, we have the internal grinder down here on here. That's just got a little arbor in there. It's bent, but you kind of see how it works. There's a motor up top. There's a belt, and I've got to get a new belt. It's a kind of a flat belt that drives this thing, and it needs to be replaced. But when you turn this motor on up here, this spins this right here. You can put a little grinding wheel in here. You put a little arbor in here with a little internal grinder, and you can do internal grinding on a piece. So your work is turning over here, your grinder's turning at the same time, and your internal grinding takes place. Let me pick this up, and I'll show you the external grinder. So that just picks up and swings up out of the way. And when you do, of course, you see the grinding wheel here. I think that's a 12-inch grinder on there, about 1 inch wide. I'm not sure what size hubs on the inside of these wheels yet. I need to take one off and check it out. But again, you got your work in here, you got the grinding wheel turning, and you can really get some very fine finishes on there, very precision finishes. This thing is made where you can basically move the wheel in and out back here. There's a crank, It also has a rapid, but this thing is incremented in, I think, 10,000ths of an inch. So you can very easily make very, very fine adjustments and make very precision cuts. So a big part of what we worked on today, once we got the machine in the shop, was this machine actually has 4 motors on it. It's got a motor that turns the grinding wheel for external grinding or outside grinding. Has another motor for the internal grinder. It has a motor on here that drives both the hydraulic pump as well as drives actually it has more than 4 motors, really 4 motors that are running, but it has a AC motor that's powering a DC generator. And then up here in the headstock, it actually has a DC motor, direct current motor, that powers the chuck. And the reason is that was for variable speed. It's got a rheostat down here that you can turn for the direct current and change the speed. It also has a coolant pump. So a bunch of different motors on here. And unfortunately, when I got it, it was wired for 480 volts. 3-phase. I'm on 240 or 220 volts, 3-phase. So we had to go in here and change all the motors from the high voltage to the low voltage. So most 3-phase motors are dual voltage. Just depending on how you wire it up in the motor, there's 9 leads that come out of that motor. Depending how you put those together, it can run on either high voltage or low voltage. In this case, 440 or 220. So we had to go into each and every motor, pull it out the leads, change them all over. That took quite a bit of time. Nils was a great help in helping me do that. And we did run into one issue. The motor that drives the main wheel here, it actually, when we were working on it, just spinning it by hand, you could tell that the bearings were in really bad shape in that motor. It ran, but it was not pretty. It wasn't very smooth running. It was kind of clunky turning. So we actually pulled that motor off, and I just ended up taking it up to a local motor shop, T&S Electric here in Tifton, where I live at. They're good friends of mine, and they do great work. And I took it up there to them, and they're going to go through that motor and check it out, make sure everything's right, put new bearings in it, and hopefully get that on there. So right now, I can't run this spindle. And got an issue with the coolant pump. I'm not sure what's going on there. I may end up having to pull that one out and have them take a look at it as well. But that may be an issue as well. The other motors are all running. Really interesting over here. Like I said, there's a alternating current motor that runs a DC motor set, and then, let's see, I think you can pick this up. Yeah. So there's a direct current motor right here that's actually driving the spindle and variable speed. Tell you what, I can fire it up, so let's fire it up and kind of show you a little bit about how that works. Of course, we can't run the main wheel, but we can run some of the other stuff on here, and you can see it running. So here's the main control panel down here. And got several things going on. Of course, we got the stop button that stops everything. Push this button, that fires up the main motor that's running both the hydraulic pump as well as the direct current motor generator for doing the chuck. I'll show that in a minute. This is for my coolant pump, and like I said, it's not working right now. I got to work on that. This one here selects between internal grinding and OD grinding. So obviously our external's not working. Turn that on, you can hear the motor click on. That's for this spindle. Like I said, I got a belt I need to replace in there, but the motor is running. Come over here. This turns the spindle on for the chuck. And again, you have a rheostat here for variable speed. You just turn that to get whatever speed you want. It, of course, if any things are going here, you want your table to go in and out, so you can see how it moves back and forth. It's got an automatic mode. There's a switch here, and when you move this over and come in all the way, you can see it starts cycling. And it's a little bit stiff and jumpy. I got to do some, I'm not sure what's going on. I think it's with the hydraulics. I got something I got to work on that, but when it gets here, it'll hit a switch and it'll come back, and it'll just basically cycle back and forth. You can control the stops in here to do that. stop that. Over here with this head, so either when you're doing internal or external, the way you adjust your cut is you move this in and out. Again, there's a manual thing here that moves it in and out, but it's also got a rapid traverse. So if you need to just doing rough adjustments, you can just move this in and out. And again, that's just sliding it in and out. Well, there you go. Just a real quick introduction to this machine. Obviously, we've got some work still to do on it. Haven't got all the kinks worked out on it, but all in all, it seems like it's in functioning shape. I need to do a few more little things to it to get it really in tip-top shape, but feel like we're going to have a nice machine here, and I'm kind of anxious to get something on here and try it out and see what kind of accuracy I can get with it. You know, until I can do some test cuts with it, I really can't tell exactly what kind of shape it's in, but hey, worst case, you know, we may have to do some scraping on the ways to get it fine-tuned, but I'm hoping that it's going to be in pretty good shape and we can just use it without having to do a whole bunch of work to it. But glad to have it in the shop. It was a little bit of a job moving this. This machine weighs just a little under 6,000 pounds. So it's pretty heavy. We got it, like I said, had to rent a big forklift to come actually unload it and get it into the shop. But we got it in here, and now that it's in here, I can get it moved around inside the shop fairly easily with some rollers and stuff like that. This is not where it's going to sit. We basically just got it in the shop and got it where we could work on it. And we'll be getting it in its permanent location a little bit later on. My plan is I'm going to move all my grinding stuff back into the back shop. I'm going to do some rearranging back in there, and I'm going to have a dedicated grinding area back there that's a little bit away from stuff. Try to keep that grinding dust isolated back there in the back of the shop. I've got a big curtain that I can put up that Stan Zinkowski gave me. I need to get that installed so that I can kind of keep my grinding dust back there. I'm going to move all of my grinding things back there in the back. And one of the things that I really want to do is put this machine and my surface grinder kind of right next to one another. And I will probably use the coolant pump and sump and everything that's built into this machine to also run coolant on the surface grinder. I've been wanting to get flood coolant on it for a while, and since I'm going to have a tank and reservoir and everything on this machine, it just makes sense that I can just run the coolant pump on this one and be able to basically use it on either machine. That's kind of my game plan that I got going right now. But glad to have this. I think it's going to be a nice addition to the shop. And with that, that's going to be it now. I'm sure you guys will be seeing more on this as we get a chance to spend some more time with it, get some things fine-tuned on it, and get it up and running. And like I said, nice addition for the shop. That'll be a wrap, guys. As always, thanks for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and comments are always appreciated. And we'll catch you on the next video. Thanks again for watching.